name is Amy McDonald. Today we have Jeremy DeVito with us. He is running for the Alabama House District, the United States Congress District number 5. He's a 40-year-old father, husband, a veteran, and obviously dedicated to public service. And he is a nonprofit founder. So, Jeremy, in your own words, why are you running for office in 2026?
Yeah, so thank you for having me, Amy. And just the question that I get all the time is why? Why are you running? So I've always wanted to be in politics. I'm not a politician per se. I've been operating behind the scenes trying to prop up my local party. I've always been kind of like a counterculture type of person. So I'm a Democrat in a red state, right? Well, they say a red state, but I feel like it's pretty blue.
Pretty purple.
So
Yeah.
yeah, this area especially, but now what made me run is I've been having these conversations with my wife about like wanting to be, more involved in public service. So I've been going to library meetings. I've been keeping track of the far right for so long that I kind of saw this playing out. And
Mhm.
my original goal was to do like state and local. Like maybe I started exploring city council. And then I went to a state legislature session earlier this year and I was like, man, things are getting bad. And I woke up one day and they started deporting people without due process. They were doing the largest, kidnapping operation in history. Uh, and so I said, I cannot stand by this. I took an oath to defend the Constitution, uphold it against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I took that seriously. And while I'm still able to stand up and say something, I need to use my privilege to do that at a time when almost everyone who can't is afraid right now. And I just don't have I'm way too comfortable in my world to be afraid. I have to stand up. I have to show courage. And I'm once again ready to say, send me. I'm ready to
Right.
run toward the danger.
What service did you serve in?
I was in the Army. So I was in the
Okay.
U.S. Army Special Operations. So have you ever heard of the term PsyOp? Have you ever heard that?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
It's really triggering for folks, especially on the right. I love saying, I'm like, ooh. No, I was a lowly E5, right? So PsyOp does a lot of cool things, but when I was in tactical side. So what that means is like I'm a 2 or 3 man team. We would
Mhm.
go and attach to a special forces unit or another unit, and then we'd be on the ground trying to help the local population not shoot at us. Essentially, like we're trained to go in like austere environments, very hostile environments, and try and convince the local population to either get out of the way or, uh, please help
Join.
us. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
I
that's
think
what my goal
PsyOp
was.
has been like the term PsyOp has been stolen a little bit by the sci-fi community and has made it
Oh
seem a
yeah,
little scarier than it is. Where
no, it's not like that. Yeah.
yeah, it's more around, in my mind at least, PsyOps tend to lean more around propaganda and the way we're perceived.
It's marketing is essentially how
Yeah.
we've described it. When you leave, if you're in PsyOp long enough, you essentially like get college credits when you leave the Army for whatever job training you
Right.
had. And you essentially get a marketing degree. You understand audiences, your message, communication style, body language, and you're also trained in a foreign language. So,
Oh, wow. Do you speak a foreign language?
well, I got Spanish language training.
That's great.
Yeah, so it was like language immersion type training where you're in a classroom, you don't speak English, and you just have to like learn to navigate your
And then you
surroundings.
stare at something and you're like, I know the word for this. What
Yep.
is it? And you just
Yeah,
sit
that's a
there seething
tough,
in
bro.
anger.
Yeah, you lose it if you don't use it. But I've got friends who
Yeah.
speak Spanish, so I like to speak with them from time to time.
Honestly, that's great in the southeast of the United States. I mean, realistically, I grew up in North Carolina and
So
I studied French and German, and I kick myself every day.
nice.
I'm like, nobody said Spanish. Nobody said, hey, try that one. So,
I didn't get a choice. I was actually really bummed because like I wanted to learn Russian
oh,
or
yeah.
I wanted to learn French, but the way that they score you is based on this aptitude battery test that you take. It's a language aptitude battery test, and it's like
Hmm.
you can't really study for it, right? You just have to be
Right.
strong at understanding like it's like completely made up languages, and they test like whether or not the mechanics that they use in these languages you would be able to figure out. And I don't know, I feel like if I would have just
I was
fought
going to
for it,
say,
I
I think
probably could have got.
Spanish and French are much easier on the mechanics of the language than Russian
Mhm.
is for us
Yep.
English speakers.
All those
Um,
romantic languages, they definitely are
they
easier.
are they're so romantic, right? Especially when someone's speaking them to you fluently. You're like, oh, well, that's I love you too. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
So, how long have you been in Alabama? You mentioned you're from Tennessee originally. How long have you been in Alabama?
So in 2012, when I separated from the military, my wife moved out here. Her family's been here since I want to say 2010, maybe.
Okay.
So I originally went back to Tennessee to try and see if I could figure out navigate life after the army. Uh, Decided I got an opportunity down here. Her family lived here, so about 2012, I think is when we moved.
Kind of worked out.
13, sorry. Yeah.
Since you have that like very special and intimate knowledge of exiting the military and entering civilian life, and obviously veterans affairs are pretty important to you. That's like a big thing on your website. Would you have a plan once you get to DC to like help get folks acclimated to civilian life after a lengthy career, even 5, 10 years, having that type of structure and then coming out into the world, it's got to
Yeah.
be very jarring.
Yeah, so that's what my nonprofit is actually about. That's why I founded it, because of my personal experience and my love for soccer and sports and just being around
Yeah.
other people. I'm not the typical veteran, right? Like the typical veteran doesn't serve in special operations. The typical veteran is an PsyOp. It's a very small community. Um,
Hmm.
the typical veteran comes from just a ton of different socioeconomic backgrounds, and they're not always good at socializing with folks. So my nonprofit
Right.
actually, I'm not to say a blanket statement, right? But we really only like to talk to other veterans. You start off on like someone described it to me perfectly when we set up this foundation. It was, that the other person took the same oath that you did and did the majority of the same things. You guys all went through basic training. You guys all
Hmm.
challenged yourself in a way you didn't thought was possible, and you all believed in something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And so
And you
when you
came out
have
on the
that,
other side. You made it to the
exactly.
other side. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you leave the service, you're always searching for connection. You're always looking for that same type of camaraderie that you
Hmm.
didn't realize existed. I'm still really tight with all of my army buddies, but when I was in the army, I almost like felt like every day I hated it. There was like
Right.
certain things about it, but then you
Like,
kind of look back on it and you're like, it's actually pretty cool, pretty fun. A lot
yeah.
of good people, a lot of fun things that we did, and I'm tight with all those people. So yeah, to answer your question, it's something that's near and dear to my heart. I would love to be able to take that with me and put some sort of, I would love to be on the Veteran Affairs Commission, the committee.
Hmm.
I feel like that would be a great spot for me. My constituents here heavily, it's like 40% veteran or 30% veteran, something like that. A lot of federal workers, almost everybody here is connected to the military in some way.
Right.
Um, so I would love to. I don't have a
Remind
specific
me,
policy or plan.
remind me exactly where the Alabama 6th district is, like
Oh,
what
yeah.
big city that covers.
So Huntsville's like the hub. Huntsville's the
Okay.
second. It's on its way to becoming I think it's the second largest city, but I think it's potentially going to be the largest city eventually. They keep annexing.
Hmm.
Don't quote me on that. I haven't looked at it. 763,000 people live here,
Okay.
in this district. So Huntsville's is the center. It goes as east as Jackson County, which is Scottsboro. And then, to the west, it's
Yeah.
right up to the edge of Florence, which is like famous Muscle Shoals Sound, that area there. And then the south, it's a small town called Decatur. So it's like a
Yeah.
triangle shaped. North Alabama is what we call it. It pretty much covers the entire like middle of the north of the state.
Okay. Cool. I mean, and realistically, it has been um the same guy's been in power there for almost 10 years. He's a Republican. It
Yeah.
does seem, based off of like the turnout numbers and the numbers I've seen from past elections, it does seem to skew very much Republican. Do you have a plan for a coalition, or are you feeling the underpinnings of things that are changing, or just people looking for something different than who's running it right now?
Yeah, I like to tell people that the person I'm running against in the House, his name's Dale Strong, and he won by default. There was no one
Because
else
nobody
running
else
against him.
ran. Exactly. Yeah, I've
That's not a
noticed that as
mandate.
well.
That's just like,
Yeah.
hey, okay, I guess. And like half the time, people who voted for him probably didn't realize, they might be straight ticket, they might not. Regardless, right? That was
Right.
2024. 2026 is going to be completely different. Here's what I've
Yeah.
seen in the last couple of months that I've been organizing. So, like, I'm an activist at heart. That's what I started doing before I even thought about running. I was like, we're going to have to do something. I cannot sit behind. I want to see
Mhm.
what's out there. I want to see if people feel the same way that we do. And the reverberation, the response that comes back to you when you do things like that in your local community is overwhelmingly positive. So we've done a couple of things. We've done a lot of protests. We've organized a few here, and they get bigger every time, and they're always
Yeah.
against the Trump administration. The second thing is we did a town hall here. We invited Dale Strong. I helped plan that town hall before I even really announced to anyone that I was running. We had like 300 people show up in Athens, Alabama, which went for Donald Trump like 70%.
Right.
Uh, people showed up and were railing at this administration. 300 people in Athens, Alabama. Now, that
Yeah.
doesn't cover the whole district, but what I'm trying to demonstrate is, yeah, people are upset and they're looking for something else. And a lot of people have made mistakes. Now, there's the hardcore MAGA folks. They exist. And that person is not, I would say, not unreachable, but that's not the
Probably
person I'm
not the
targeting.
focus. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
targeting those people. They're just always going to vote MAGA no matter what you say to them, right? That's a
Hmm.
lot of people in my life. But for the remainder of the person who was just politically curious and then woke up one day and was like, oh, politics actually do matter, around here and in the Democratic Party and in this country in general, people are just like, I hate politics. I'm like, well, you better start liking it because things are happening around you
Things are
that are going to
changing
affect.
rapidly. Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna start impacting the rest of your life and my children's life and your children's life and their grandchildren's life. That is literally what's happening here in a bad way.
Right.
So
Right.
that's the calculation that I'm making, that there's more of us than there are of them. We just need to activate.
I agree with that completely, and I think one of the major failings, in our I'm a couple years younger than you, so in our lifetime, the major failing of that Democratic Party that we know is just not having people show up. You're not giving people the choice to vote for anybody else, and so that's really frustrating, so it's really nice to see. I told you I've been interviewing a lot of people in Alabama, and it's
Yeah.
really exciting. I grew up in the South. And like we've obviously watched where I grew up, North Carolina, kind of morph into purple,
Oh,
damn near blue
North
state.
Carolina too, and it's
Yeah, and so it's like really cool to watch this happen in real time and like watch young people show up and just get excited about politics again.
yes. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Alabama Democratic Party, for all its faults and imperfections, there's a lot of infighting, okay? And it takes a lot of courage to come. And I did this intentionally, right? I could run
Mhm.
as an independent, but I think that lacks authenticity, right? I've always
Yeah.
voted for a Democrat. I work for the Democratic committee here locally. People know who I am. And honestly, like if that's a dirty word in this state,
Yeah.
I take that because I would rather be a Democrat than a MAGA.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, so let's just paint the contrast every single time we can.
Mhm.
So, own it, right? You don't have to be any certain type of Democrat, but if you're on the left, start taking it back. People call me a
Right.
Democrat and they thought it was an insult. No.
I skew very far left. Like the name of this podcast is The Foolish Optimist. It is a quote from Franklin Roosevelt. I have a tattoo, a different quote from Franklin Roosevelt down the side of my body. Like, so people are always like, "You're crazy leftist." And I'm like, "No, I'm actually just like what the Democrats were in the 80s."
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, actually, it seems crazy because we have been pulled a lot to the
Oh,
right.
yeah. Yeah. That's the
And
narrative,
we've been
right?
hijacked. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The narrative is like, I'm in the middle. If someone tells me they're in the middle right now, I'm like, do you know
Oh,
what
so
the middle
you're
is?
right
You
leaning.
zoom out and to look at other countries and where the middle is there. Even the far right in England would never run against universal health care.
Right, right, because it's
Yeah.
been something they've had for so long,
Yeah. So, yeah.
and it's worked. They've figured it out, and I'd love to hear your take on universal healthcare. I know you're obviously pro universal healthcare, but like, we have a much larger country than any European country. But like in my mind, there's definitely ways to do it that would placate everybody and also make sure that everybody is covered in some form or fashion. Is it perfect? No. Is it ever going to be perfect? Obviously, the fuck not. Like it can't be,
Yeah.
right? Like dude, there's 370 million of us. It's never going to be perfect for everyone, but there's got to be a good, decent way.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a time, I think we may have peaked in the 90s, at least as optimists, right? But
Yeah.
I grew up in a time where people told you dream big and we can fix it, we can figure it out. And
Right.
now all of a sudden we're getting told, no, we can't, it will never happen. And I just don't agree with that. I don't take that. Like, how do you get the wealthiest country in the world, in the history of the world,
Hmm.
and build the largest, most powerful military? There's rights and wrongs about all of this, right?
Right.
But stop telling folks we can't do it when every other industrialized nation can do it
Has
with
figured it
way
out.
less.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's an actual popular need.
Hmm.
It's popular. Progressive ideas are popular. And by the way, it's an economic message, right? How many people out there would not work the job they had and start a business if they
Right.
didn't have to lose their health care? I mean, it is like every time you've ever interviewed for a job in America, you probably said, well, what's their health care coverage?
Right. Right. No, exactly.
Why they don't ask those questions in other
Anywhere
countries,
else. I
You
think
would
about
get
that all.
crazy.
You're exactly right. I think about that all the time. I think about the small businesses. I think about the artists. I think about even just people who want to stay at home, raise families, and like focus on their family, or maybe even take time off to focus on a parent or like whatever. We would be such more of a well-rounded um, superpower, if you will.
Absolutely. I mean, it would just
Yeah.
be like a happier, healthier society, and that's more productive, right? If you're the capitalist, that's a more productive society. People who are
Right.
healthier and happier. Healthcare insurance was started during World War II, if I'm not mistaken, because people needed to incentivize the smallest workforce that we had in the country, but they couldn't pay more. So they had
Hmm.
to incentivize them in other ways. And then it just kind of
Yeah.
stuck around. And it's like, well, now it's become bloated. You want to talk about bloated programs, insurance programs and all the middleman and all that stuff.
Oh,
You get mail in we can talk
I
about
just
this
got a
too.
bill, so it's in the front of my.
Yeah. And then like, how many times have you gotten a bill and been like, well, what is this? And you got to call them and say, well, do I owe this? And then,
They're like,
it's
I'm
just like,
sorry.
no, sorry, we can adjust that. And like,
Yeah.
why? That's a hassle. That's such a hassle.
It-
So the stress and like I'm a pretty healthy person, but I've met
yeah.
so many folks who aren't, who are like debilitating diseases or
Yeah.
older, and the amount of stress and fear and anxiety that puts on you to just want to live and be healthy as
It's
much
so
as you could.
unfair.
It's
Yeah.
not fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I really
we
like
have
what
to.
you were sorry, I really liked what you were saying about how we were always told we could like dream big and do whatever we wanted. And now we've got this like weird mentality. And of course, you've been in PsyOps, you are a marketer. So maybe what do you think about where we go from here and what the left in general, their marketing strategy needs to look like to get young people on board, just get people to show up to vote, even if they haven't in 20 or 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, and, I think they consider us young people too, right? Although I
We are
don't,
young.
yeah,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
don't consider myself young by most, but if you look at like the voter demographic here, I think there's a swath of like a lost generation that's younger
Hmm.
than we are, right?
Yeah.
Lost in a sense of like hopelessness, lost in a sense of like, um, the government. Think about what the government has done and what Democrats have done, right, over the
Right.
last several decades. So I say this a lot. We've lived through two wars.
Mhm.
Uh, we've lived and they're like 20 years going,
Yeah. It's a
several
never ending
conflicts.
war.
Yeah. Economic crises, the Great Recession. Then you had Trump won, and then you had COVID. And
Yeah.
every step of the way, Democrats have kind of lost the plot a little bit, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm afraid to impeach people when they're doing obviously impeachable things,
Hmm.
and hand wringing about that stuff. We have
Very
not
reactionary.
oh yeah. And we
It's
just
never
haven't
been
given
proactive.
exactly. And we just haven't given people like we're keyed in politically, I think. I'm a junkie,
Yeah.
but like
Correct. Yeah.
the average person who just maybe will or won't vote or just can't get the time off, we've just made it so uninspiring. And
Hmm.
you got to give them something to believe in and something to vote for. But my strategy
Yeah.
is be bold, be intentional, and be unapologetically left. I am whatever they say I
That's a sound bite. We're
am.
gonna put that. You're gonna be able to post that on your
I
Instagram or
hope
wherever you're
so.
posting
Yeah.
because that's perfect. That one. That one and the hope one in my mind.
Yeah.
I'm like, those are two that we will be using a lot.
Yeah.
I appreciate that though. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I am whatever they say I am. Oh yeah, I do want universal healthcare. Yeah, I think there are some things that are,
Crazy.
yeah. You know who has universal healthcare? Who has it figured out? The U.S. military.
They've figured it out to a T.
It might
My
not be the
brothers.
best that you could ever get, but
Yeah.
you're still
But it
not gonna have to
works.
worry about it.
Also, like, frankly, the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate has
Oh,
pretty darn good health insurance.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, so that's a good point.
And they do
Yeah.
get it for quite some time. Like, if you hit a certain amount of years in office, I think you do get it for the rest of your
Yeah,
life.
I'm gonna have to look that up and look into this. The benefit. I haven't even looked into the benefits other than just like the pay.
Yeah.
The way
The
I'm
pay's
treating this,
pretty good.
yeah, the way I'm treating this is, it's not enough for me to like, it's for me, it's like a deployment. This military
Yeah.
mindset is,
True.
I'm treating it like I'm being deployed to Washington D.C. And right now we're in pre-deployment. It's like I'm gathering up all the supplies that I need. I'm training. I'm
Yeah.
getting my team together. Like we're going over strategy. Like what's the area like? This is deployment, right?
I love that.
And
Yeah.
then when I get there, it's like, okay, I'll be gone for a little while, Michelle. I'm leaving my wife, my kids,
Right.
in critical times of their lives, which I did, and I never wanted to do again. But I'm going
Right.
to, because it's the most important thing that I can do right now, and I truly believe that, and that's how I'm treating it, and that's how I think how you should treat it. My opponent treats it like, I think he's got bigger political aspirations. I love the House of Representatives. I think it's cool. It's scrappy.
Yeah.
There's like 400 of us in there. Like, let's go.
Just literally like locking arms,
Yeah.
getting shit done.
Mhm.
Honestly, I mean, the House of Representatives does a lot of work. And I think that's the other thing, right? For the majority of our lives, we've watched Congress become less and less effective, right? They've passed less and less laws. They've become more divided. Obviously, that's an issue, right? Like, what do you think the future of Congress, especially if you're there, when you're there, we're manifesting, when you're in Congress, what it will look like for young Democrats, young liberals, progressives to work with some of these, institutional Democrats, but also people who don't seem keen on working with each other. How do you think you're going to make that work out?
Yeah, I think that's the politician part, right? Like that's the part that people hate because it's not a skill that lends itself to honesty or, I'm an authentic, honest person, but I'll tell you in a way that's like, I can deliver that message in a more conditional way. So like, if I feel like you're being, if you're being obstructive or you're not aligned with the party, I'm not afraid to challenge that. And I think I'm inspired by seeing folks like Bernie Sanders. By the way, we could go back to the Bernie Sanders thing. We talked about how, not mine, I'm sorry, I'm ADHD, but
it's perfect. This is why it's working so well.
Exactly. When we talked about why the party has kind of failed, that was a huge moment. The Bernie, I hear about that all the time. It didn't really click in my head. I've always just been like, the military again, just drive on, suck it up, drive on.
Yeah.
It happened, whatever. But for people who aren't like that, that was a big situation when they railroaded Bernie Sanders out of the nomination. People really
still talking about it.
Oh yeah, it stuck with them, and that turned some people to Trump. Right? That's the change
Straight
agent.
pipeline. Yeah.
They wanted a change agent. Some people might not be inherently racist or bigot or misogynist or whatever, but they voted for fascism because they saw somebody who was going to challenge the status quo. And I didn't always believe that, but now it's very obviously true.
It's pretty abundantly clear. I agree with that. Yeah. I was talking to my dad about it this morning, actually. I'm visiting my family, and literally we were talking about exactly that. And I was like,
yeah,
you're right.
I just didn't put much stock in it, but sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it was important, but I wasn't keyed in on it at that point. I knew I was going to do my diligence and I was going to vote for a Democrat because Trump was dangerous. And I think a lot of people didn't. And they haven't re-engaged since then, but they're waking up now and they're re-engaging now. So that's the good thing. It's like, okay, this is it though. 2026, this midterm election, I feel like really is Democrats' last chance to get this right for a long time. Like I'm talking a long time. That's just my
Are you a military history person or like a political theory history person?
Yeah, I read a lot of history. I thought at one point I was going to major in history. That was like my first choice. What were you going to reference?
I was going to reference Andrew Jackson, right? Andrew
Mm.
Jackson is a military hero, B, a little bit of a psychopath and one of our
Mhm.
presidents. But what happens after his time, when they called him King Andrew, because he was trying to consolidate executive power, is a whole new party springs up. The Whig party shows up because literally they started calling the like institutional party the do nothing party.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh,
Yeah.
the know nothing party. I'm
They
sorry,
know
the
nothing.
know
Yeah.
nothing. That's what it was. But like,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of I love the Democratic Party, lifelong Democrat, again, further left than our Democrats today.
Mhm.
Um, like you, unabashedly so. People are like, that's terrible. I'm like, empathy?
Is it? You know.
But yeah, I do. I think you're right. I think we have one last effort. And I think that's kind of why I started the podcast, right? Because so many people are running and so many smart people who, like yourself, have great, diverse backgrounds who aren't looking at Washington like your next career, but rather a deployment 4, 6, 10 years, and then you're out,
Mhm.
you know. Something I loved, and I mentioned it before we even press record. I'm going to mention it again. The way that you talk about the immigration on your website, you say we don't have an immigration crisis. We have a crisis of leadership. Can you expand? Because I like
Yeah.
that phrase a lot.
So words are important, and a lot of
Yeah.
times, folks, especially when you're the president or when you're a leader of the nation, your words matter more than the average person. You just have to
Mhm.
understand the gravity. So they chose these words very carefully, and they messaged the crap out. Immigration crisis, invasion at the southern border.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't live on the southern border. I imagine that it's very frustrating to see an influx of folks, right? I'm not going to deny
Yeah.
that. But my first reaction is not like, hey, let's round them up, put them in a camp, and then send them back. That's not my first
Right.
reaction
Right.
to anybody. Uh,
Yeah.
for me, a crisis was COVID.
Yeah. That's a
COVID
crisis.
in
That's
COVID
2008
impacted
to me
this.
is even a crisis. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you could have an immigration crisis on the southern border. I believe that
Mhm.
as a crisis of humanity, though. It's not a crisis
Right.
of any other means, right? It's not a military interventionist type crisis. It's, hey, we've got a situation here. Let's think about the root causes and what we can do to address them.
Hmm.
So I don't want to use the word immigration crisis anymore. I want to be counter to that and say it's not an immigration crisis, it's a leadership crisis. And that reason why is because they've had chances to fix this, but it's a popular issue to run on. And the
Of course. Yeah.
Democrats are just too scared to actually push for what would actually change and work. But in a crisis, if you're going to use the word crisis, like your house is on fire is a crisis, right? Like you're
Right.
having a really
Right.
bad time. But there's health crises that are impacting you directly. I don't know too many folks in Alabama who can tell me that they are directly impacted by someone who is an undocumented migrant in a negative way. They
I
can
mean,
give
a
you
lot.
concepts, but they don't
Yeah.
have anything that will actually direct. It's usually like, well, they're absorbing resources in the system, which is inaccurate.
They're not.
They
They're
pay
actually giving
for
money back to the
yeah,
to the system.
yes, and thank you TikTok and everyone for trying, to educate folks on this. But I don't know if it's
Yeah.
working. But I know us on the left, we understand the
Yeah.
facts are that they're a net positive, and they're doing
Right.
stuff that we don't want to do. And like friends of mine, like literal friends of mine, are more accepting and more loving, and they're not even from this country. And
Right.
now, that's not a crisis. That's not a crisis that requires mass deportation, violating the Constitution, violating people's civil rights. Like that's scary. That's great
That's a
stuff. So
crisis. Violation of the
yeah,
Constitution is where
yes,
that we lean crisis when I, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
That's what I mean by that. So I will tell anyone who's willing to listen, MAGA or otherwise. I've been saying this for a while. I'll sneak into TikTok live and I'll
yeah,
say that to them. I'm like, there is no immigration crisis. You can't tell me a single thing that happened in your daily life, but you could tell me all about COVID.
yeah,
You could tell me every single thing that was different under COVID.
right.
That's the most connection that I could give.
And it is the most recent, and it makes, but like, it's yeah, words are really important. You mentioned some infighting in the Alabama Democratic Party. There's always infighting on the left, and people try to diagnose it for 1,000 different reasons. Um, and for me, the one thing that I keep coming back to is that, like, hatred is a little bit more inclusive. I don't know that, it doesn't, you don't have to be perfectly in line
Yeah.
to fit into a group of people that are othering people. But I appreciate that. I think we need to be more intentional about our
Well,
words.
they know who they hate, right? The folks who vote for that, they may or may not even realize it. I mean, there is a subconscious bias and you splurt things out, but we
Of
live in
course.
a racist, white supremacist society. That's no joke. And in Alabama, it's like pretty much still alive and kicking in a lot of ways. I mean, we're a bunch of small towns with about 3 or 4 big towns.
Yeah.
And, the population is small. People know each other. I hear all the time that people know Dale Strong and he's changed and he's power hungry. Had his cell phone
Mhm.
number. Now I won't call him back. I'm like, that's unusual for a representative, a House representative, to have
Right.
that kind of connection with the city and the town that they live in. But yeah, like you said, they know who they hate. And that's why it's an
Yeah.
effective message.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I think there's just a ton. I try to impress this upon people like you and we met via TikTok and I post a lot of videos on there, but I do try to remind people like every day. I'm like, why is someone trying to make you afraid? Where is who's benefiting from your fear? Does it ever get through to people? I don't know. I think I might be screaming into the void, but it's something that I think we need to talk about more because there are
Yeah.
people and nefarious actors who want to benefit off of.
I mean, it's hard. The immigration thing really upsets me, right? This mass
Yeah,
deportation thing is super upsetting to me. Like I think about it daily. I talk to my wife
same.
about this. And like my daughter has friends. One of their parents is undocumented,
Right.
and as soon as that election happened, I said, sweet, he needs to have a plan. I told my best friend, I was like, you need to have a plan.
Yeah.
And he's a citizen. I was like,
But
I don't think they're gonna care. Like
and
they're
you
just
were
not.
right, right?
Yeah.
It took them one hop, skip, and a jump, and they went from non-citizens to citizens. I mean, the mayor of Newark
Yeah.
got arrested by ICE last week, which is
Arresting judges, and they don't have anything on that judge.
I know,
They
and
just
people are
indicted
up in
them.
arms.
They don't have anything. A judge, right? We used to be a law and order place. Now, do judges do bad things? Of course. Like people can be
So
bad and
many.
make bad decisions, right? But
Yeah.
that
Well, and I
that
think
one
that
instance is not like their standard is so high. It's much higher than even the president of the United States now, apparently. And now you're telling me the judge is wrong, but like
I mean,
they're
being a
violating
teacher in this country is a higher standard than being a president. Yeah,
exactly.
I don't know any district you are allowed to teach in if you have a felony on your record.
Jeez, you're right.
Um, but you're right. The judges do. Uh, yeah. There's so many things. So we've talked about Veterans Affairs. We've talked about immigration. You mentioned you have a daughter. Do you have? You said you have multiple children. Are you fully girl dad, or are we mixed?
Yeah, I've got 2 girls and a boy, and they're all kind of spread out in age. The 2 girls are very close to each other. One's 13, the other one's about to turn 12 in the summer, and then my son is 6. So
Oh,
just kind of,
perfect.
yeah, very busy. And what's
Yeah.
weird about having 2 girls for so long is like the girls after a certain age they don't want to hang out with dad as
Mm,
they do, but it's just not the same stuff, right? Like watch
it's
TV,
different. It
do
changes.
art,
Yeah.
whatever. My son, he is all about whatever I'm doing. Like just
Yeah.
absolutely like you got a hammer, I want a hammer too. You're fixing this, I want to fix it too. The others are like, you're going to a
Well,
soccer game, I want to go too.
I was gonna say, as a the second daughter, so we've got 2 boys, 2 girls in our family, and my dad and I are exactly the same, so we kind of butted heads in around that high school age. But for the last like 10 years, we're like, I'm like, good
Yeah,
news, call dad. Bad news, call dad. Question, call dad.
I hope so.
Just
I hope
want
that's
to.
what I'm doing.
I think it'll swing back. It
I
will.
hope so.
Um. So you're a parent multiple times over, obviously, and education in Alabama. What are your thoughts on that?
I just had a conversation and I started getting mad about this morning.
Sorry to bring it back up.
That's okay. I've had time to process.
Okay.
Uh, it's not great.
Yeah.
It's not great. And not just like curriculum, like that's one thing, but they've recently passed a law that will tie prayer in school
Mhm.
to your funding.
What? Holy
Yeah,
shit! I did not know
yeah.
that.
I don't know if it's passed into law, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it is. I'm not 100%. But it's scary to even think that that's a thing. Either they attempted to do it or they've done it. I haven't kept, I'm
Right.
trying not to. The
Dwell on
legislative
it too
session is,
much.
yeah, the legislative session this year for Alabama is almost over if it
Okay.
starts, and they'll have several special sessions if they need to, but
Hmm.
um,
And that's at the
that's
state
something.
level, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So those things, they're very much so. I read a book. I've been very much into. I've always viewed public education as a necessary foundation for the betterment of our society. Just,
That's
standard tenets of education, right?
right.
Like
Right.
everybody gets the same like basic level, and then you can achieve what you think you should achieve after.
Beyond.
Well,
Exactly.
they've used education here in the South as a tool of segregation to keep people down. Yeah.
Continuously. Yeah.
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 So this is where the Southern strategy kind of was founded in Alabama. And so as soon as they knew they were going to lose segregation, this is well documented. As soon as
I
they
think
knew that they
about
were,
George Wallace a lot.
yes, yes,
Segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever.
the people are still alive that
I mean,
remember that.
my parents were in middle school when that happened.
Yeah. And and those people who were like at those rallies, they raised children, and those children
Yeah.
raised children. And those people are in leadership positions. So it's still alive and well. So
Yeah.
the conversation we had this morning was about school of choice, which is like, I don't know how they're doing this, but they're convincing people to carry water for wealthy people and use our tax money to do it.
Is this the vouchers program?
Yes.
Like, yeah, yeah. My
They're
mom is
expanding
an
it.
educator and she hates it so much.
So you go to anybody. Here's what I hate about the right. I really do. They tokenize it. Can I say shit?
Oh, I mean, I've already said fuck. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah, you
you say
did.
whatever you want.
That tokenize the shit out of people,
Yeah.
right? For their own necessary needs, but they don't give a shit about them.
Right.
So what
No,
I mean by that is teachers. Oh, I love
pedestal.
teachers.
Yeah.
Love teachers. They're the best. Oh
Love
man,
let
our
their
teachers do
funding.
everything, right? And then, but let's give this school voucher program 300 million, and then oh by the way, we're going to increase that next year. We just did that in the legislative session, and then
Yeah.
oh by the way, it's going to be uncapped. So Florida did this, and Florida famously like has gotten like completely in debt because of it. So how can you stand up for
Logic.
teachers and then turn around and say, I'm going to fund private education with no standards?
Right.
And most of it here is religious schools. The private schools are religious.
Yep.
And by the way, Alabama has a huge, especially in this district, there's a very huge population of special needs children.
And they're losing.
They're going to
Yeah.
lose all of that funding and all those resources that they need. And not all, but it's just going to slowly diminish.
Yeah.
And they're going to tie it to things like attendance. But like one of the questions that I got was, people's argument to why this is a good thing or why it shouldn't matter. It's like, well, they pay taxes. They being wealthy people, they pay taxes. Shouldn't they be able to use them? I'm like, yeah, go to public school. No one's
Also,
saying
just
you.
make public school the best public. Like we've already mentioned this, right? We are the wealthiest country in the modern world of all ever. We should have the best public schooling system in the world. Like, but you've already mentioned this, right? Like the problem is that because of our diversity and our history rooted in white supremacy and racism, it's a lot of rich white folk don't want to pay for people who don't look like them.
No. It goes
It's
hand in
very
hand also.
frustrating.
What the other part is like, look, I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Christ, and it is not what they're teaching in some of these schools is not. It's suppression in a lot of ways. It's like
Mhm.
like you talked about being able to challenge your thoughts and challenge your views. They don't teach that as much in a secular
Yeah.
school. If
Yeah.
you're in a Christian school, I mean, and
Oh no, it's very. You were talking about. And I went as someone who went to a private Christian school in the South. I was told by a teacher I was switching to public school because we had run out of money. We had some family crises. Couldn't stay there. A teacher looked me dead in the eyes. I'm 12 years old. She's like, "Well, you can do whatever you want. You're going to public school." And I was like, "Well, I've never been there before. I think there are rules. I don't know." Like, no, honey, you can do whatever you want because you're going to go to hell anyways for going to public school.
What?
After I was 12, I was like, I have to go. I like went, and my mom taught at the school. I went and sat in her room, and I was like, am I going to hell? And she's like, no.
So sad. It's
She's like,
funny
no,
to
you're
think
not.
about in retrospect, but you laugh so you don't
It's
cry, right? If someone told
horrifying.
if someone told my child that, I would be livid. I'm
I-
already pretty
my
upset
mom-
that my son thinks that he's like good and bad goes to hell. I'm like, dude, you're 6 years old. You don't need to be thinking so much about heaven and hell.
Right. Think about living your life, having some fun, making some friends, maybe
I was
playing a
like, hey,
sport, being a kid.
think about empathy, like, hey, you know, towards
Yeah.
animals, towards people, treating people how you
Yeah.
should be treated. That's the kind of stuff that's gonna get you where you want to be. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
education in Alabama, that's where we're headed, right? Segregation, by other means.
Yeah.
We're subsidizing the wealthy some more. And then I'll tie in prison systems, you know, like
Oh, yeah.
keep you uneducated, prison for profit. They profit off of people's labor, called work release here. They get like a significant portion of your money, and they work for cheap.
Yeah.
So
I mean, for like nothing, it's like pennies on the dollar. I mean,
it's modern
slavery.
slavery.
It is slavery. It is slavery.
It's modern slavery. And, you know, that's the situation in Alabama when it comes to education and social justice and social well-being, right? They'll have you believe. So like people that I know will want to do the school voucher and are doing it. But they don't realize that you're just enriching those folks even more. They're taking your money and you're paying them again.
Right. Exactly. You're getting a discount at a place
that they're already going to go to.
They already need. Yeah. They don't need. It's school vouchers
for the desire of what is a better education. I don't blame anyone for wanting their child to have a better education and a better life, right? Like that's normal. But aren't we the bootstraps? You know, pick yourself up. Do a little more. If you get a job at the school if you really want to go there, so that if you can't afford it, find other ways. But don't take away from my kids and everybody, like the majority of the kids that live in this area, because that ain't right. Like, how many kids are actually going to go to private school versus public school? Overwhelming majorities are going to go to public school.
And you said it's 300 million.
Yeah. And that's just this year. Next year, it's going to be more. So they passed it this year to do more in the session. We got an update yesterday from the Democratic committee. I was at a meeting yesterday, and they talked about the legislation.
I mean, sometimes the amount of money that we're talking about, whether it's at the state level or the federal level, feels like it's not real, right? We're talking, when we're talking about the military budget, it's trillions, 300 million just for this one program this year, next year with 500. Like it's so much money. And it's so hard to like wrap your head around sometimes. And I think that is part of why we haven't issued defining what a billion, like understanding how much a billion is.
Well, I've worked in procurement. I didn't realize this until just recently. Like, I've worked in procurement now for 10 years, roughly. I spent millions of dollars.
Right.
And I've looked at budgets and I look at contracts that are millions of dollars. Numbers don't shock me as much anymore, but I understand the reference points, right?
Right.
I don't think the average person deals with millions of dollars for billions of dollars in a way that makes sense.
Definitely not
to their daily budget, right? Your daily budget is 60 grand a year, right? Like that, how you have to. When you're talking about a millionaire, their daily budget is going to be literally 10 times what yours is,
Yeah. I was watching like a finance guru talk about something that some billionaire bought. She really wanted them, and she was looking at it, and she was like, "Oh," and then I did the math. I found her net worth, and I divided. I saw that she had, $2,000 on her wrist or whatever, and it's, she was like, "That is the equivalent of me spending 10% of my net," and it's one bracelet or whatever, and it's kind of illuminating.
If you're wearing your vacation, if you're wearing my vacation on your wrists, you're very wealthy.
We're not in the same.
We're not the same.
Yeah. So we are coming up on time here. Could you do a couple of things? One, tell everyone where they can find you, and two, shout out any sort of events you might have coming up where people who are from the Alabama 6th District could come and meet you.
Yeah. Great. So you can find out everything you want to know about me at jeremytakesthehouse.org. And then all of my social media handles except for Blue Sky. I'm most active on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook because it's easier
Okay.
for me to post. I'm managing most of it myself. There are some people helping me. But jeremytakesthehouse.org, you can donate there. You can, and look, I'm just trying to get on the ballot right now. There's going to be a primary
Totally.
more than likely. And I've got the donors who said they're committed, but every little bit helps. Because I do
Are
want
you
to find
taking any big money, any corporate money?
no corporate money. I've just recently discovered that there are some good PACs out there that are transparent, progressive, and that they raise money. So if you're ever in a progressive PAC, I've actually reached out to Vote Vets to see if they would endorse me. Vote Vets is a very
That's a good
progressive,
one. Yeah.
good one, and I think I'd be like that's an advantage that I have over my competition. Is I can use those networks. But yeah, I'll take progressive PAC money, but I'm gonna look into it before I take any other
Right.
money, and they're gonna look into
Yes.
me before they give it to me. Well, I
That's
want to
good.
raise the standard of ethical standards.
Right.
So at first I was like, hell no, no PAC money. I don't care who you are. But then I started
Yeah.
looking into it, and someone was like, hey, you might want to relax on the PAC money. There are actually good PACs. But in the end, I would end that, right? I know we've got time.
Oh no, you're
Yeah, I'll
fine.
take.
I
Yeah, I'll
mean,
take.
I think I'm with you on that. It's like let's to beat some of these people, you're going to need some PAC money in some states, like yours probably. Guy's been around for 10 years. He's probably got some really deep pockets in terms of who's giving him money. And if you can
Yeah,
find
somehow.
ones that you align with,
Yeah, somehow he became a $22 million millionaire within the last 10 years. So that's really
interesting.
weird. Yeah, it's really weird. I'll find out.
Interesting how that, yeah, we'll dig into that one.
Yeah,
Well,
but yeah, I will accept progressive PAC money, things that are aligned with me. But let's do their diligence and check each other out. I'm literally trying to raise the ethical standard. I don't want to be bought. I can't be bought. I mean, look, I'm doing this as a Hail Mary. I'm not doing this to get rich. But at the end of
yeah.
the day, I do want to win this seat, and it will take money to do it. So jeremytakesthehouse.org, at Jeremy Takes the House on most socials. I have a link tree on my website. All my links are there. If you want to meet me in person, June 13th, I've got something. There's a calendar actually on my website. I updated it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I think there's something coming
I think
up.
June 13th will be the week after this episode is going to air. So that
Okay.
is a good check out the website.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, but that'll be right
Yeah.
around that time.
I'll be at a protest in DC, but that's going to be June 6th. That'll be after. So I don't.
Is
I've
that the
got some.
veterans? Is that the vet? Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
I
I'm
might
going
also be
hopefully.
there.
Oh, cool. We should tag up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to meet more people outside the area and just like people like us to try and network. There's a couple of different coalitions that are happening right now. I'm in a coalition called We the Future Coalition, which is
Oh, I
like
heard about that.
yeah. So look at We the Future. I'll give you a link We the Future Coalition is like literally like a list of progressive candidates that are all running across for every different. So there might be some folks for you to talk to there. And Brenda Licious off TikTok interviews us. So if you want to, I'll be doing that. I had to reschedule because I've been coaching soccer. My kid.
Oh, that's good. Are they
It's
winning?
been raining and we've had to have
season?
it. Yeah, it's been raining, and so I've had to reschedule a bunch of stuff because the games are getting canceled and rescheduled.
Oh,
Season's taking
yeah.
breaks. But yeah, that's if you find me on jeremytakesthehouse.org, you'll find everything else about me. My link tree has clips and interviews, things that I've done locally.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I'm really excited to see where you go.
Yeah, I'm really happy to take the time. Thank you for reaching out, and let me know if I can ever do anything else for you.
Awesome. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. Thank you for following The Foolish Optimist. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, pretty much. We're going to be dropping new episodes every Wednesday, and you can watch the video episodes on YouTube. If you would like to, please give us a review, leave comments. You can also email us at thefoolisoptimistpodcast@gmail.com. If you see any really great candidates that I should be talking to, send them my way. Thank you.